Hi there. In this video, we're going to be talking about data validation and condition statements. So we have this, we're still working with the same data set that we started using. So we have right here, we have cut flowers, fruits, pot plants, and vegetable. I'm just going to increase this a bit so we can see. Okay, so we have categories, items, variety, date, price, and unit. And under category we have pots, what's that again? Pot plants. So when do we use data validation, or how do we validate our data? So to avoid misspellings of some of these words, we use data validation to ensure that we have accurate data entry every time we want to enter our data. So to apply data validation to each of these columns, we'd first make a list of the items you want to validate, which means that this first column cannot have other categories apart from these ones I've listed right here. So to validate my data, I'm going to turn this into a data validation, and then I'm going to apply it right here. So I'm just going to go to data right here, and I'm going to go to data validation right here. Can I say data validation, and it's going to ask me what value do I want to validate. So I want to click onto the entire column right here, and I'm going to come back here, data validation, and it's going to ask me what value do I want to validate. So if I wanted to add code a particular data type, this is where I can do that, which means that I can either have a whole number in a column, a decimal, list, date, time. The text length has to be a specific character you want the user to input, but the one I'm going to use right now is the list. So now I put in the list, it's going to tell me that which column do I want to, or what's the data source that I want to use to validate this. So I'm just going to click on this, and then I'm going to come here and use this right here. So then I'm going to click OK. So what this is going to do is that it's going to validate each entry in this column. So you can see it's already pointing out that there's an error, which means that this particular first entry right here is an error. So what I want to do is to ignore this particular one, right? But every other one looks good, right? So if I wanted to add another entry, I'm just going to go down to the last entry. If I want to add another one, when I click on here, I can pick the type of vegetable I want to add, or the type of category I want to add, or I can just simply add a new category. So if I wanted to, I could also validate items, varieties, dates. Dates I think should not be validated, but I can add code this to take in a date format. So I can have items, I can validate each and every one of these. So we've seen how we can validate our category. Now let's go back and customize the look and feel of this particular one. So what happens when my user tries to enter values that are different from this? We can have a title attached to our category. I'm just going to say category right here. And I can say this category includes fruits, vegetable, So which means that this gives my user a feel of what they should put in there. So I'm just gonna say, and then I'm gonna go to the next one. So if there's an error, I'm just gonna say category again, invalid category. Then I'm gonna say, it's gonna say stop. Do you want it to stop the entry? You just want it to give a warning, or do you want this to be an information? I'm gonna say stop because I don't want inconsistency in my entries. So I'm just going to go to the last one again, and this time I'm going to try to put in something entirely different. Now you can see I'm having, this is category, and I'm having this category includes fruits, vegetable, pot flowers, and pot plants. So let's say I try to edit this, but now I'm putting maybe fat and oil or cereal or something. You can see it's going to tell me that this is an invalid entry, and it's going to give me another chance to retry. So this is what that error part of the data validation is doing. So it's going to stop the entry, and the entry will not be accepted. So that's why you have the error, you have the style stop. But if I just say warning, what happens is that it's going to accept this, but it's just going to warn me that this entry is not correct. If I say this, yes, you can see, but it's telling me that this entry is not correct, but it still accepts it in there. But the other one will not. So I can also try, let's try again to include this item in, validate this item. So I'm just going to come right here, just going to scroll up again, and I'm just going to create that here. Just going to call this category. So basically when you are creating this kind of list, you don't want it to be very visible. You might just create a new sheet here, put in all of your data validation code, and then hide the sheet so that your user does not see where the validation is coming from, and they won't be able to update it. So the second one we're going to take a look at now is the items, right? And I'm going to say items, right? And the items I'm expecting, if I just click on here, I have different items. So I'm just going to leave us to do this particular one, and then you have variety. So you might want to try out item and variety, see where that leads. And then the one I'm going to try now is the price. I'm just going to change this to price. Right, I want the price to be a decimal, so I don't need to hard code anything here. The only thing I need to do is to click on the column, because this is a column that is going to take in the value, and I'm going to go to data validation, and I'm going to go to my settings, add value. I want this to be a decimal, and I want the decimal between 1 or 0, because we can have 0 point something. So I'm just gonna say 0 to 5 point. So I'm just gonna say okay, and if there's an error like this first one, this first one will automatically flag because this is a character, not a decimal, but every other one is going to work. Now if I now input, this is 5 now, 1 rather, and 5 is my maximum. If I put in 6, it's going to tell me that the value does not match the data validation restrictions defined for this cell, so which means I cannot have 6. So this kind of limits your outliers in the data entry. So what outliers means is that you have already defined the range of values that you want to insert, or you want your users to insert into a particular cell. So if they are now bringing a value that is more than that or lesser than the minimum value that you stipulated, an error message will be flagged. So that's just that about using the decimal. So I'm just going to use date format here. So I'm going to say date. If I wanted to use a start date, which means I don't want a date earlier than that date, and I don't want a date after that date. So this is how I just do that, right? So for you now, I want you to look at the list dates that you have here, and look at the start date and the earliest date, or the late date and the earliest date that you have, so you can validate that and ensure that your user does not try to enter dates that is beyond what you've stipulated, and see the kind of error message that you get when you try to enter a value that exceeds that stipulated time. So note that when you get rid of your data validation list, it automatically affects this, because this is what your data validation is feeding from. So always ensure that wherever you're keeping this, it's it's safe, let me put it that way, or it's been hidden so that it doesn't get tampered with. So another thing we're going to look at now is the price of this. So let's say that we want to add some changes to our prices. We want to update this prices. Just gonna say or we just want to make some manipulations. Just gonna say price update, and I'm gonna add a condition statement. If my price is a particular threshold, then I want to do something. Then if it is not, then I want to do something else. So I'm gonna say equal to, and if, because I want to write a condition, right? I'm gonna say if this, just gonna open my parentheses, you see logical test, value if the logical test is true, value if the logical test is false. So the first one I'm going to try now is just true or false. Then we're going to try advanced ones like using or and then using and. So if I say is this greater, sorry, that's less, is this less than 0? If it is less than 0, what do I want to do? If it is not, what do I want to do? So if this is less than, okay, not less than 0, I'm just going to say less than 1. So because anything that is less than 1 is falling in the range of 0. So I'm just going to say, is this less than 1? If this is less than 1, then needs update. If it is not less than 1, that means it's 1 and above. Then I'm going to say updated. So this is going to check all the values in each of the cell, and it's going to give me a response based on what I just fed in there. So which means that my 1.27 is greater than 1. So that is why I have updated, and these other ones that are in the field of zeros, they really need to be updated. So what if I wanted to now check for more than one condition? What if I wanted to check for maybe 2-3 conditions, and true or false is not going to do the trick? I'm just going to say multi-con or multiple condition. So to do this now, I'm going to say if this is less than 1 and it is kg, then do something. If it is not, then do something else. So what this means is I'm going to say equal to if this value is less than 1, right? And I want to check if it is kg. So to check if two conditions meet, that means it's less than 1 and it is also a kg, I'm going to use if and. So I'm going to say if, then I'm going to say and right here, and then I'm going to put the condition. So which means that this is going to allow me to check multiple conditions. So this is going to say and allows you to take logical operation 1 or logical condition 1, logical condition 2. So if I remove this now and I just say if is expecting a logical statement, just one logical statement. But when I say and, I'm saying I want to use more than one logical statement. So it's going to ask me the first logical statement, separate it by second logical statement using a comma. So the first logical statement is I want to check if this is less than 1. That's the first logical statement. So I'm just going to close this bracket. I'm going to put comma. What do I want to do? But before I put in the comma, I'm just going to say comma. The second logical statement is if this, right, is equal to kg. That's just this thing I want to use. If this is less than this and it is equal to kg, then what do I want to do? Then I want to say so it's less than 1 and is equal to kg. Then I want to say objects necessary, because I want values that are greater than 1 to, those are the values I want. Once it's greater than 1 and it's in kg, then I'm good to go. But if it is less than 1 and it is kg, I feel like this value needs updating. Otherwise, I want to check again if I wanted to check again, I would say maybe put another condition, or if I just wanted to put it false, I'm just going to say something like you can see it's already giving me the value, but I've not put in what it should do when the values or the conditions are not met. So I'm just going to do that quickly. I'm just going to say update done, and this is going to fill this up. So this is only particular to this only, because you can see that this is still lesser than 1, but it's not saying is update done. So this still needs to be updated. That's what that means. It means that this updates necessary. If I change this now, you see that this only applies to values that are less than 1 and they are kg. Right? If I say pick all the other ones, you see that even though this one is less than 1, but it's head, right? So if I wanted to write multiple conditions, I could use and if I wanted to check if whether one condition is met or another condition is met, in place of using my and here, I will be using or. So this automatically changes the entire thing, because it's either one condition is being met or the other condition is being met. So basically everything is just going to fall in the category of this first one, which I don't want. So I'm just going to change it back. Okay, so again, let me give us a recap. We use if only when we want to check for one condition at a time. However, we can use multiple if statements in just checking for a response. We can say if this is this, use this. However, if it is not, still check again. So we can do that, but this one is just using if and then using if and or if or.